So this is just a mixture of doing which rule and also making sure you see which one has x on top and x on the bottom. So the first thing is to identify it. So if you look at this, that's the adjacent, that's the hypotenuse. Okay, A on H, so it's cos. So cos 40 equals A on H, so that's x on 9. And then x will be 9 times cos 40. Because if you look at that, it's going to be times because x is on top. So when you get rid of the 9 here, you times it on both sides. So that's why it'll be 9 times cos 40. Okay, if we look at this next one here, there's the angle. That's the opposite. This is the hypotenuse. So it's sine. So sine 70 is opposite, which is 8 on the hypotenuse, which is x. So it's 8 divided by sine 70. And then you just work out what that is. I'm not going to actually work them out, just kind of show you that there's the difference that if x is on the bottom, then you divide. And if x is on the top, then you times. All right, one more to do. So let's look at this. Opposites 15, adjacents x. So that's TOA, so it's tan. So it's tan 32 is 15 over x. That order is quite important. It's O on A. And O is 15, that's why 15's first. And then x is on the bottom. Now when x is on the bottom, you divide. So 15 divided by tan 32. Reason? Because when you multiply by x on both sides, they cancel out. And then when you go to now move the tan 32 to the other side, it's got to become division. You could write it as 15 over tan 32 as well. So just go back and look at those ones just up the top here. If we look at those, so if you look at these, I just want you to realise with this one, the adjacent came first and then the hypotenuse. So it was A on H and A was X. So X, then the H on the bottom. That's why the X came first. It was on the top. So that's why you times. When you look at this one, the second one, the opposite was the 8, not the x. So the first one wasn't the x came second, it was the hypotenuse. So then look what happened. So you get 8 first over x. So x turned out at the bottom, that's why you end up dividing. Okay, so really, as far as the rules go, wait a minute, you go so, ka, toa. So when you're going so, ka, toa, depending on where x is, if x is the first one, like the opposite there, you times. If it's the second one, you divide. If it's cos and the first one's x, you times, like if it's the adjacent. If it's the hypotenuse or the second one, then you'll divide. For tan, if the first one's the opposite, you times. And if it's the second letter, then the x will be the adjacent, and then you would divide. You could also look at it as sine on cos, cos adjacent on hypotenuse, tan O on A, and do exactly the same thing. Times if it's on top for the x, divide if it's on bottom. Times at the top, divide for the bottom, times for the top, divide for the bottom. How do you know if it's times or divide? You've got to look at the order these come in. Put the opposite first on top, then the hypotenuse, or the adjacent first, which goes on top, then the hypotenuse, or the opposite first, and then the adjacent.